but do we have to go directly to pharmaceutical cocktails to cure it?
Precisely, and thanks for that lead in. Depression is a very complex disease. Now, I'm not a mental health professional. I'm a virologist and infectious disease specialist, but I've been trained all this. What we have a tendency in medicine for a bit of groupthink problem. It's been with us for centuries, and we all know that that's the case. In the case of depression, it is multifactorial, and one of the problems, of course, is our social isolation, fragmentation of community, and other things, our separation from each other, which has been exacerbated by technology. But there's some good news, everybody, okay? There is, even though the data on the influence of serotonin and depression is basically junk. That's what this umbrella analysis shows. The data on the linkage between sunlight, vitamin D, and depression is strong. There are multiple papers out. It is very clear. Increasing your vitamin D levels, what a shock. Just the same as how you can prevent your own COVID to a large extent by making sure you have adequate vitamin D. Getting your vitamin D levels up really helps with depression, and it's not good enough to sit behind glass. My friends, you have to get out. You have to have direct sunlight. The more, the better. Sunscreens are actually not your friend in terms of vitamin D. And I just want to leave everybody with the understanding that we have options. And what a surprise. They're options which the pharmaceutical industry has done their best to suppress any awareness of. They trashed the likes of Dr. Mercola, but in fact, he's head on this one too.
Well, and speaking of the industry, so I want to play a clip now from MSNBC because we've got a new vaccine on the market.
We want to turn to the latest on the coronavirus pandemic. Some new headlines on this topic you may have seen. We just saw that the CDC advisors voted to endorse Novavax COVID-19 vaccine. That happened in just the last hour or so. The vote comes on the heels of the FDA's authorization of the vaccine that we saw last week.
All right. So, and you told me during the break that you really wanted to respond to this clip. So we've played it here. What's your response, Dr. Malone?
So what you cut out was the following, where MSNBC brought on their, quote, medical expert who has no real training in vaccinology or vaccines or infectious disease, in which he says that the Novavax product doesn't include spike protein. It includes matrix. Okay, this is either mis or disinformation. The War Room audience understands the difference between those two, having to do with political intent. Novavax absolutely includes purified full-length spike protein with the same 2 amino acid point mutations that are in the genetic vaccines. This is a spike-based vaccine. MSNBC is wrong. Why are they saying that? Because they are trying to promote uptake of this product for those that are vaccine hesitant because they're wary about spike. But the Novavax product is spike. It's a purified protein made in caterpillar cells. Caterpillar cells do not add sugars the same way that your cells do. So this is likely to be important as we go forward. This is a product which does have risks of myocarditis and pericarditis. The FDA admits they are not completely characterized. The authorization is predicated explicitly on the logic that there is not enough of the existing vaccines available. And so even though Novavax did a much, much better job in their testing prior to emergency use authorization, by the way, this is not licensure, another thing that the media keeps getting wrong. This is EUA for Novavax, only for the 2-dose regimen, what is still an experimental product. It is spike-based. It uses what's called an adjuvant, something that makes the vaccine more reactive in your body, that's extracted from a tree from South Africa, a little bush called a saponin. And this is the Matrix M. This is what MSNBC got confused about. Matrix M is the adjuvant, not the antigen. So I know the Novavax team extremely well. I know the technology extremely well. I'm glad to see it finally available to people. I've advocated that be the case for over a year now. as opposed to the genetic vaccines. For some people, it's something to consider if you're in a box in your job or whatever, or your government is forcing you to take the product. I still don't advise this. It is still spike-based. It still has myocarditis and pericarditis as an adverse event. But if you're in a bad spot and you feel like you got to do this or lose your job, this is a viable option if you do not want to take a genetic vaccine. Over.
All right. Good news for everybody on that.